Hazrat Abu Raja narrates that Hazrat Samura bin Jundab radiyallahu anhu said that Allah's Apostle sallallahu alaihi wasallam would very often say to his companions, "Has any one of you seen dream?" The transmitter states, "He with whom Allah Jalla Jalaluhu pleases narrates it to him." One morning he sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Last night two angels came to me, awoke me, and both of them said, 'Let's go.' I set off along with them and reached a man who was lying while another man was standing over him with a stone, with which he would pound his head, and it whereupon got crushed. So the stone rolled away, and he went after it to fetch it again, and by the time he returned to him, his head would heal up like its former condition. After returning, he would again do the same, what he had already done. I said, 'Glory be to Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, who is He?' Both of them said, 'Proceed ahead.' So we proceeded on until we reached near a man who was lying flat, while another man was standing by him with an iron hook in his hand, with which he would cleave his jaw, his nostril, and his eye to his nape. About Abu Raja of says that sometimes he would say after cleaving it, he would pay attention to the other side and do the same with that side what he had done with the first side. When he had finished cleaving the one side, the other side would recover and restore to its former condition, and then he would do the somewhat he had done formerly. I said, 'Glory be to Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, who are they?' They both said, 'Come along.' So we went on till we came to a tandoor, clay oven like thing. The transmitter says, I think he would also say, there were clamor inside. We peeped into it to see naked men and women. When the blaze of fire reached them from underneath, they would yell. I thereupon asked, 'Who are they?' They both said, 'Move on, move on.' So we moved ahead until we reached a river. The transmitter says, I think he would also say, 'Red like blood.' A man was swimming in the river, whereas the other was standing on the river bank with a lot of stones gathered beside him. When the man who was swimming would come close to the man who had gathered stones, he would open his mouth, and the latter would put a stone into his mouth. So he again would swim away, and when he would return, the latter would again put a stone into his mouth. I asked, 'Who are they?' They both said to me, 'Move on, move on.' So we went on until we came close to as an extremely ugly man as you had ever seen. There was fire by him which he would kindle, and around which he would run. I asked them, 'Who is this?' They said, 'Come on, come on.' So we proceeded until we reached a garden wherein all types of spring flowers had blossomed. In the nucleus of the garden there was a huge man. I could not behold his head on account of his sky-kissing height. There were so many kids around him that I had never seen of anyone else. I asked, 'Who is he? Who are they?' They both said to me, 'Come along, come along.' So we went on until we reached such a huge garden as I had never seen a more enormous and elegant garden than it. Both of them said, 'Climb it, a tree therein.' So we climbed it to see a city whose one brick was of gold and the other of silver. We therefore came close to the gate of the city and asked to open it. So it was opened for us. We then entered it to find such men, half of whose bodies was as beautiful as you had ever seen, whereas the rest half of them was as ugly as you had ever seen. They both said to them, 'Go and dive into this river.' That river was flowing with ward, and its water was extremely white. So they made to it and divided into it. When they came back to us, their ugliness had vanished and they had become handsome. They both said to me, 'It is the Eden paradise, and it is your dwelling.' I raised my eyes and see a white cloud-like palace. I said to them, 'May Allah Jalla Jalaluhu bless you both. Let me enter it.' They both said, 'Not yet, but you will definitely enter it.' I said to both of them, 'Throughout the night I have seen amazing things. So what are the things I have seen?' They both said, 'We tell you of it. As for the first man you reached, and whose head was crushed with a stone. He was the one who had forgotten the Quran after learning it, and the one who would sleep at the time of a prayer. As for the man you reached, whose jaws, nostrils, and the eyes were being cleaved to the nape, he was a person who, when got up from his house, would fabricate fallacies and disseminate them throughout the world. As for the naked man and women in tandoor like pit, they were the adulterer and adulteress. And the one you reached, who was swimming in the river and a stone was put in his mouth, was the one who used to devour usury. As for the ugly person by the fire, who was kindling it and would run around it, he was Malik, the in charge of hell. As for the high-statured man in the garden, he was Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, and the children around him were those who died on natural religion. The transmitter says, some Muslims submitted, O Allah's Apostle sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what about the polytheists' kids? He sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the children of the polytheists as well. As for the people, halves of those bodies were beautiful and the other halves were ugly. They were those people who performed the mixed deeds, good as well bad. So Allah Jalla Jalaluhu pardoned them. Sahih Bukhari Hadith number 7047.